Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is listener question number 2, and it's been sent in by an anonymous listener from Lahore. It's actually 8 questions, so I'm going to answer as many as I can within a 15-minute time frame and leave the rest for an inshallah future episode. I'm going to copy the questions so you can see all of them in the details of the video. Now, first question: do you think chemotherapy is the treatment of cancer? What is the replacement of chemotherapy? Do you think cancer itself is merely a severe fungal attack? First, I do not believe chemotherapy is the treatment for cancer. That being said, I also don't want to remark on something I've never bothered to explore at length, except that chemotherapy appears to me to be, or it is rather, it is reminiscent of an age-old medical treatment, which ironically you appear to already know about. I'm referring to cauterization, and I'm going to narrate a narration from Sahih al-Bukhari here. This is number 5680, and it was narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, healing is in 3 things: a gulp of honey, cupping, parenthetically this is hijama, and branding with fire, also known as cauterization. But I forbid my followers to use cauterization or branding with fire. Now, there are other narrations pertaining to cauterization, and they imply that cauterization was severely disliked by the Prophet ﷺ, but not categorically forbidden. So all the same, cauterization or anything resembling it is, in my book at least, the answer is not here. Second, to the second part, I've already answered this in the previous hadith that I narrated. Incidentally, the answer is hijama, but I'll provide something from the hadith that is even more categorical than the previous hadith, and this is also from Sahih al-Bukhari. This is number 5696, in which it's narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, the best medicines you may treat yourselves with are cupping and sea incense. Third, no, cancer isn't merely a fungal attack. All the same, this inference is partly grounded in truth. The most potent stimulator of cancer, as I have come to understand it, is exposure to environmental toxins, and within that, exposure to a certain type of fungi that are known as mycotoxins has been conclusively established as a cause, and possibly the leading cause, of liver cancer. These mycotoxins, they occur in the form of mold, which, if I'm not mistaken, is what we in Urdu refer to as urli, and which grows, rather I'm referring to mycotoxins here. These mycotoxins, they grow or occur on nuts when they are stored or grown in damp and humid conditions. And the worst offenders are peanuts, although of course scientifically they're a legume, but all the same, practically they're the same food group. So typically this fraction of dried fruit, not the fruit proper, but the nuts, these are the worst offenders, but specifically peanuts. And scientists have found that populations where children are fed peanuts as a dietary staple, they have unusually high rates of liver cancer, and the link with moldy peanuts has been scientifically and conclusively established. All of that being said, even then there are far more potent environmental toxins that are carcinogenic. The most long-standing of these, as per my knowledge, is soot, like soot that collects when you burn wood. So to further your understanding, I strongly recommend that you read about the English surgeon Percival Pott and his discovery in the year 1775 of the Christian era of chimney sweepers carcinoma. These are very accessible articles. Both of them are both Percival Pott and chimney sweepers carcinoma. There are articles on it on Wikipedia, and they are short and concise. Okay, that's it for question number 1. Number 2, what is the replacement of root canal? Okay, I'm sorry, I have very little knowledge of surgery at present, and least of all dental surgery. However, I do know where you might find the answer. There's a subdiscipline of natural medicine known as functional dentistry, and the best known clinician in this field is an Australian researcher whose name is Dr. Stephen Lin. He hosts a podcast, and I think it's in number 176, episode number 176, where in one section he discusses root canals. So I suggest that you start your investigation there. Number 3, what is the replacement of cauterization? Okay, we already covered part of this in the answer to number 1. Nonetheless, cauterization, I understand, also has had a long-standing function in surgery and emergency medicine, and I do not know what the substitute for it would be in that context. Number 4, why is miswak so important that the last act before death of Rasool Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is proven to have been miswak? I'm paraphrasing here. I'm actually hearing this for the first time. I checked sunnah.com and I couldn't find anything pertaining to this in the listed books. All the same, miswak is certainly irreplaceable, as has been illustrated in many of these, where the fitra, or what is translated as man's internal disposition, is discussed. It's narrated in Sunan al-Nasai, hadith number 5040, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam identified 10 things that form part of the fitra, and these include various acts of self-purification, and one of these 10 is the miswak. Presently, there's an abundance of medical literature both in the West and even in the Far East on how the efficacy of miswak on dental health far exceeds its synthetic counterparts. But this isn't what you've asked about. You've asked me about, or so I've inferred, the merits of miswak as an instrument for spiritual hygiene. Although, please correct me if this inference is mistaken. Now, assuming that it is not mistaken, I will say that I can account for my, I can just relate from my personal experience, which is that I switched to using miswak 9 years ago. I've never used toothpaste since that time, even once. And the thought of subsisting on toothpaste again is completely foreign to me now. If I, Allah forbid, ever had to, and I go to extraordinary lengths to avoid that circumstance, I guess if I ever had to, I'd feel the way I would, or somebody would, if they perhaps lost their nail cutter. You know, I expect I would feel like a portion of me was foul or ugly, and I wouldn't want to go near people. That is my, those are my personal sentiments. Number 5. As hair bun of women is not permissible in Islam, so do you think hair bun has psychological effects on personality and may cause headache? Let me give a preface here to my answer. My understanding is that hair buns are makruh, that is severely disliked, but that's because I presume here that is because the hair bun compromises the woman's hijab. I'm not clear at present on whether it would be impermissible for a woman to keep a hair bun even in her private space. So I ask that we tailor this question to mean, will committing the sin of making a hair bun in front of non-mahram men produce the stated effects of on personality and headache? In the case of psychological disturbances, yes. My answer is an emphatic yes. Let me refer you to 2 narrations from the hadith. The first is Sunan Ibn Majah, hadith number 4244. This hadith narrates that one of the companions said that Rasool Allah said, when the believer commits sin, a black spot appears on his heart. If he repents and gives up that sin and seeks forgiveness, his heart will be polished. But if the sin increases, the black spot increases. This is the ran that Allah mentions in His book in Surah number 83 verse 14. Nay, but on their hearts is the ran, parenthetically covering of sins and evil deeds, which they use to earn. The second hadith is from Sahih al-Bukhari. It is number 52, and it is a long hadith, and within it is a fragment which I am going to quote here, in which the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, beware, there is a piece of flesh in the body. If it becomes good, the entire body becomes reformed. If it goes bad, the entire body becomes rotten. And that piece of flesh is the heart. Well, it's quite clear that sins lead eventually to a black heart, and that the latter in turn pathologizes the functioning of the whole body. Now, this was understood in antiquity, even in the Western tradition, such as with the ancient Greeks. You'll find an excellent illustration of this in the Canadian neurosurgeon Wilder Penfield's novel on Hippocrates. The name of that novel is The Torch. Hippocrates discusses the belief of the time that the heart was the seat of the psyche. Okay, and then if you would like what in my opinion is a far more powerful exemplar of this relationship of committing sins and the psyche becoming pathologized, then you should please listen to my presentation on artists, specifically Predestination series part 2, Archetypes of Born Evil, the statue and portrait artist. Before I can conclude about headaches, any potential relationship with headaches, hair burns and headache, unfortunately I don't know. I don't dismiss the possibility rather of there being a physiological link between the two, but there is presently none that I know of. Alright, that is it for question number 5. Alright, it appears I've gone a minute over the stated limit, so apologies for that, and thank you for your questions, and I enjoyed answering them because they demanded that I revisit certain motifs in religion and medicine that are not typically of interest to people. So I'm very happy about this. Thank you very much, and I will in the comments I will give some recommendations for further reading. So alright, thank you, and inshallah I will preserve the rest of the questions for an inshallah future episode. Thank you.